Have you ever just stopped and thought about how much of your life happens on a screen? I mean, we work, we shop, we connect with people, we learn. It's all in these digital spaces. But at the end of the day, we are still physical beings, right? In a very real physical world. So, what's the deal with that? What is the relationship between our physical world and our digital lives? Let's kind of dig into that tension and figure out what it means for the importance of, well, place.
I love this. This classic cartoon from way back in 1993 just perfectly captured the promise and, let's be honest, the problem of the early internet. It's all about this idea of abstraction. See, online, we can be anyone or even be anywhere. We can interact without being fully present or, even fully ourselves. And while that can feel super liberating, it also makes you wonder, doesn't it? It raises some really deep questions about what we might be losing in the process.
So, this brings us to this really fundamental conflict in how we think about the future. It's almost like we're being presented with a choice between two completely different visions for how technology is going to shape our lives. And this slide just nails that contrast. On one side, you've got the technological vision. The idea here is that our future is going to be more and more free from physical chains, from having to be in a specific place at a specific time. But on the other side, you have this experiential vision, which argues that no, we actually thrive in real, tangible, unique environments. So one is all about celebrating freedom from place, while the other is all about finding meaning in place. It's a huge difference. Okay, so how does the internet actually do this? How does it pull us away from the physical world? Well, the main tool in its toolkit is something called abstraction. Now look, communicating from a distance is nothing new. I mean, people have been writing letters for centuries. But the internet, it takes this to a whole other level. This whole abstraction thing, it basically happens on three different levels. First, it abstracts place itself, right? We have virtual offices, virtual libraries, virtual communities. Second, it abstracts the self. We represent ourselves through, text in a profile or with avatars. And third, it even abstracts of interactions, using automated systems that kind of remove the need for direct human-to-human contact. And that, right there, leads to the big question we've got to ask ourselves. As we spend more and more of our lives in these abstracted virtual worlds, what are we leaving behind? What's the actual cost of all this digital convenience? To answer that, let's totally shift our focus for a second. Let's talk about the incredible, irreplaceable value of the physical world. And this isn't just about land and buildings. It's about our deep, fundamental connection to the spaces we actually live in. Really, it all comes down to a simple, undeniable truth. No matter how fancy our technology gets, our lived experience happens right here, right now, in our physical bodies. Yeah, our eyes and ears can get information from all over the globe, but our actual life happens in the physical space we're standing in. Just think about it for a second. Think about your desk at work or your favorite chair at home. Why do you put up photos? Why do you arrange your books just so? We all do it. We instinctively try to put our personal stamp on the places we spend our time. But why? Well, there's actually a name for this quality. It's called the spiritedness of place. And it's not some weird mystical concept. It's really simple. It's the idea that when we care for a place, when we inhabit it, we infuse it with our own story, our own biography, our history. We're literally pouring a little bit of ourselves into the physical world around us. So, how can we get more of this in our lives? Well, the architect Christopher Day suggests we can actively cultivate this connection by listening to what a space needs, by truly being present in it, and by consciously making our environment part of our life's story. We can create places that aren't just functional, but are deeply, deeply meaningful. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. Let's take this idea from our personal space and apply it to our life with other people. How does this whole tension, physical versus virtual, play out when we start talking about the idea of community? This quote from Daniel Kemis is so powerful. What he's arguing is that a true living culture isn't just a collection of shared interests you can find on some online forum. No, it's rooted in the shared experience of living in a real, identifiable place together. And this is a great way to think about it. You've got these two totally different models for community. And we can use the historical debate between Jefferson and Madison as an analogy. So Jefferson, he was all about a politics of engagement, where people meet face-to-face in their local towns to solve problems together. The perfect example? A town hall meeting. Madison, on the other hand, he was more for a procedural republic.
using rules and systems to kind of keep people apart and let commerce flow smoothly. The modern version of that? A moderated social media platform. See the difference?
So, after all this, where does that leave us? Look, the point of this whole explainer is not to say that technology is bad. Not at all. It's to get us to ask some questions we might have just been taking for granted, to consciously think about the role that physical presence plays in our lives. So let's start with this first big question. What are the real long-term consequences when our work, our friendships, our education, when all of it happens mainly through a computer? What happens when all those little local details just fade into the background? Which, of course, leads to the next question. Is there something absolutely essential about in-person, face-to-face interaction that we just can't replicate through a screen? Something about creating a shared world together, right here, right now? And ultimately, it all just boils down to this one final, really challenging question of priority. It isn't about throwing away our digital tools. It's about consciously choosing to give real weight and importance to our physical lives, to our bodies, our places, and the people we share them with. I want to end with this really beautiful thought from T.S. Eliot, because maybe the ultimate irony of our digital age is that by exploring all these vast new virtual worlds, we're actually being forced to rediscover the profound, irreplaceable value of the physical world we inhabit every single day, and to truly know our own place, as if we're seeing it for the very first time.